Good morning. Good morning. Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. First day of school back in this Pennsylvania area. I'm off to work early today. Had a great weekend, great time at the range with my good friend and brother, not in blood, but it feels like it, Eric Kennedy. And I've touched on this before, a myriad of things, a few topics of one, your friend circle. Your circle contributes or should contribute to your wealth. When I say your wealth does not always mean in money. Sometimes it can mean you're wealthy in mind. Excuse me. Allergies are still somewhat on, still an issue with allergies. Your friends circles, if you have them, that you meet with, talk with monthly, intervally, when they interact with you, it can't just be all for shits and giggles. There needs to be some shared information. And the good thing about it is that, when I was sitting down with Eric and we were out to the range and we go and get, it's some food to eat, we sit down and we commune. We break bread. We talk about things. It allows us to get to the root of what's going on, what's bothering us. We are each other's counsel. It is not a hierarchy. It's more of like a round table. And in that, we have the air of honesty that we're truthful about the things that matter to us. Make sure I tighten this up a little bit. We're truthful about the things that are bothering us, the financial situations that we could be in, the challenges that we've been facing. And it's time for us to share and exchange information and or ideas from an outside perspective. And the good thing about it is that we both come from a good place of wanting to help each other and being honest with our critiques and sometimes criticisms of each other. And there's no ego with that criticism. There's no ego with that critique. What you have is someone that you can go to confidently and confidently that you can come as yourself and leave better enhanced. It's one of the good things about having someone that you can be honest with. And also in our spare time, we research and exchange that information on things that can help us to be wealthy. He's given me tips on how to help my kids get, more focal point towards scholarship. And he doesn't even have kids, but he's analyzing and looking at life through a different lens when he's looking at my life. The same with I to him, even though we both are married. When I say that, it goes into the greater detail. When you are looking at me as a subscriber, as a video viewer, I'm giving you information that I look through, not as a single person, but I've looked through the lens of my life when I was single. I looked through the lens of my life when I didn't have the responsibilities that I have now, when I was not married. And a lot of people say that a lot of issues about marriage deals solely and is really dependent upon who they are as a person in that marriage. One thing I will say about men who have, I guess, one-sidedly said that, they've been done wrong by a woman, I've never heard how they were as a man. I go to work, okay, that's good. A lot of people go to work, but work is just simply a job. It does not, why does this keep doing this? Work does not mean, give me 1 second here, let me just fix this camera. Work does not mean that you are you're providing an environment where people can experience, that's the issue, it's right here. You're not providing an area where people can have funds, where people can have access to, excess funds that they need. Just because you work, but if you're both broken, you can't have any luxuries that people think are necessities, then people are going to have a hard time looking at you as a good leader. I mean, even in kingdoms, even in economies, when people have excess money, when people have, they have lower taxes, they have more semblance of wealth, people generally are happier. Well, that is the same responsibilities for you as a leader. If you're not able to provide that framework, then you probably should not look at getting married or taking on those responsibilities, because it's going to be damn hard for people to be happy in that environment. You might say, well, even wealthy people get divorced. Yes, that is true. But are you in that group? Because if we're not in that group, then we really, really don't want to use that as an outlier if that's not your example. Don't go for the outliers and make that your example. You need to use where you are in the majority of people that are in your group as your example. And if we're looking at that example, like I'm not a 1% person yet. I have not achieved that level of financial status. So I can't look and talk about the 1% of people and I'm not in that group. That sounds good when you use them as an example. It makes you feel better because you're mostly inadequate that you got to compare something that you're not. But realistically, if we look at you amongst your group, you'll see that really that's where you should be comparing yourself to. That's like a high school player comparing himself to Kobe Bryant, God rest the dead. But when he was at his prime, I'm just as good as Kobe. No, you're not even in that league. You need to compare yourself to other high school players. And often what we see when they get to college, many of them cannot perform at even the collegiate level because the level of play has increased. So we're getting back to our lives when I'm in my 40s now, you're in your 20s, your friends need to be growing along a path the same way you are because their level of play should be higher. The conversation should evolve. Past girls dating and probably having sex and wanting to go to clubs and drinking at bars to, hey man, how can we build idea wise, mindset wise, towards a future that I can benefit from having you around? If I only have you around to watch the game and that's all we're doing, well, that doesn't help me in my other 6 days of my life. Now, if I have you there because I need a release from all of it, all well and good. But a lot of times people fill their lives with people who add no real value to it. And that often can be family members too as well. They're there to waste time, your time. In the relationship of just sitting around and exchange information based on nothingness is all they have to add and contribute. I find a lot of times that I don't talk to many people because simply there's nothing they can add to a conversation. We're sitting around trying to find conversation to have because if we had a conversation, we would be having it. With Eric, when I'm out with him, we don't have to force a conversation. There's things I talk about with him, there's things he talks about with me, and then in a friendship, in a network, in a circle, even some of the videos that I post, we're talking about some of the points that I made that he wants to discuss. Wow, that guy's really, it's a loud car there. What's that, a Hellcat or something? And like I'm discussing with you on this channel, what's coming up now is everyone is talking about the Fed interest rates, jobs. So we're going to touch on both of those. Jackson Hole, I believe that's Kentucky, for the people who do not know. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, if you're not in the know with whom is in government, who's in government positions, Jerome Powell, Fed chairman, Federal Reserve, implicated that, now all of a sudden inflation's at 2.9%. Things are looking good, and we might have to lower the interest rates. The interest rates have been getting lower. I think they were once up to about 8%, 8.25%, as high as that. And then now the interest rate gradually dropped down to, on average about 6%. Not that they were lowering it, but they just gradually got lower. And they're talking about lowering it more. When interest rate lowers, it does mean that money is cheaper to be borrowed. But again, in our market now, cheaper money is when they do this, because they've done this before. And you're gonna be old enough. Look at this motherfucker here, man. You get over. Look at this guy in the Subaru Forester, right here on the left. Let me turn this a little bit more so y'all can see what the hell I'm dealing with when I'm driving here. Just careening down in the right lane, speeding as all God mighty, like he's Ghost Rider coming out of hell. And instead of getting over, again, I talk about this right lane thing, man. This is just assholes at driving. It's staying in the right lane, in a merge lane. You have to get over when cars are coming onto the interstate or a highway. So that way the cars can get over because we only have a limited amount of a merge lane to use. But selfish people will be selfish, and it won't be limited just to money or any other thing. So the one thing you have to understand about when they say 25 basis points, it's actually a percentage, 25%, which is 0.25 on the interest rate. Now that's the standard median or middle interest rate. The average you can get with supposedly maybe 620 credit score, 700. The higher up your credit score is, the cheaper your rate is. And people may not understand why a good credit score is the thing of value. The reason why is that the difference in the interest rates that you can get, depending on your credit score, it means that when you borrow, when you have access or you're paying money back on credit, because credit still is borrowing, or you're going to a bank and getting a loan, the interest that you pay back is cheaper to pay, which means that the price plus the interest from one purchase when you have bad credit to another purchase that you have good credit on could save you thousands of dollars depending on the life of the loan or the life of the borrow. That means until you pay it back or pay it off, the interest you could be paying, that you're making the banks richer. The longer you make payments, the more richer they get, because obviously it's more interest they can get from you. And I, as a private lender, much like many banks, we get the interest up front. Your first half of your payments, you're paying the bank their profit, not the principal, which is the price of the actual product or borrow. You have a credit limit. This is why I left early. Look at this shit here, man. Traffic. When you are borrowing or using your credit card and you have to pay a balance of, you borrow $10,000, you charge $10,000. When you are hitting monthly interest cycles, if you have not paid back that debt, the interest is compounded monthly or annually or daily. There's computed interest, and you're paying interest for holding that balance over every single month. So if you don't pay the credit card off in full, you're going to get hit with interest on that same balance, on that same purchase, and it's going to keep hitting month after month after month. The same thing when you're paying on a loan. The more you don't pay off the principal of the actual loan, you're going to be paying interest up front. For the first 15 years, you're paying primarily majority interest. That's what your majority of the time pay. You're paying the bank so that way they can make their profit. Whatever the house cost or the loan is, you'll deal with that balance later. You're going to pay a little bit of it. I want to say like maybe 75-25% of your payment is going towards the interest on the loan. The rest of it is going towards the principal. So that's how you can see, even in student loans with these high interest rates, your balance of what you owe is still pretty much your damn loan that you borrowed years ago, because you're paying the bank's interest. The banks are not in the business of making you richer. It's to make them richer. That's why they call it the bank. You used to heard that term, big bank take little bank. And a lot of people get confused with their ability to access money. Just because you can access money, it does not mean that you have that actual money yourself. That is just your ability to access it. Which is a lot why I had this conversation with Eric the other day, is that a lot of people you hear like Kiyosaki, John Hope Bryant, talking about how much debt they own. As if, and to me, I'm not saying anything bad about Robert Kiyosaki or John Hope Bryant. I don't value debt as a bragging point, because I have the ability to access high levels of capital when I don't have cash reserves to equal out my debt. And that debt-based business is what's killing America. Because you see, what's happening now is they're running these debt-based business models on society. They're running the same models on how they charge you as far as credit cards, as far as interest, as far as loans, as far as housing prices. They're using inflation to lower your dollar's purchasing value while keeping the price of everything much higher. And the reason being is that the people at the top, they're now making more money because you're paying a higher price when the interest is higher. The interest rates can be low, but the prices are low. That's a good thing. Interest rates low, prices are high. That's what we saw through this whole market after the pandemic. And everybody's saying rates are low, rates are low. Well, your house is double what it used to cost. I mean, go on Zillow. I go on Zillow every single day, and I see home prices from 2018 to 2024 almost double in 4 years. That never happens. Never happens. It usually took 10, 20 years for your house to double. Now it can happen in 2 to 4. That's ridiculous. And it's not the interest rate that I'm concerned about, it's the price. Because it doesn't matter the rate, the price is the price. If the price doubles or the price lowers, great, you got an interest rate, but now your house is now you're underwater in your mortgage. Because again, the value for what you own, you have to hold on to longer than you may want to. Now, if you're going to be in a home for 30 years, well, 2 tears in a bucket, fuck it, who cares, right? The price is the price. You're not worried about that if that's going to be your forever home. But if you look that you're in through life transitioning, you may want to sell the house later in 10, 15 years. You have to make sure that the price is there when you need it. It's going to be higher when you need to sell. You still have that mortgage to pay. You could sell the house, but if the mortgage obligation is not satisfied, if your mortgage is higher than what you could sell the home for, and let's not forget, like with homes, we talk about this many a times, you got to fix them houses up. In 10 years, that kitchen needs to be updated. Them light fixtures need to be updated. Those bathrooms will be outdated. In 10 years, don't act like nothing will ever happen in the home. You got to start fixing stuff. Now you got a mortgage that you are just trying to survive on. And the next thing you know, also on top of that, you got to put these maintenance in there. Don't let that heat and the plumbing go up. Don't let you need a new roof. Don't let you need a water heater. And don't forget, you still got to take your ass outside and cut that grass every day. What about them plants that die? You're going to need new flowers. Don't get married. Wife's going to want new shower curtains. We talked about this. And again, it becomes a money pit, a place where you put your money into and nothing comes out. The only thing that helps you if your finances are in order beforehand and you know why you are buying. You're buying with an intent and a purpose, and your purpose is not to stay in debt. You're going into these purchases understanding that you're going in getting the best interest rate that you can because you qualified. You've gotten the best down payment, that you do not have so much debt around you. Remember, we talk about trimming that fat. This is getting yourself financially sound. You're coming in at 20% to make sure your mortgage payment is low enough for you to afford all the cost of owning. You'll hear a lot of times on these real estate channels about the mortgage payment, but no one talks about the cost of ownership, which I do talk about. If you've been, I'm going to talk to some people that are now in their 20s, and this is a great educational point for parents to sit down and talk with their 20-year-old kids, especially if they're coming out of college and they're either buying their first apartment or buying their first home. Hopefully they're in an apartment before they get to home. But if you have people who have just moved out of their parents' house and they're moving into their first home, the cost of ownership, and when I say ownership, you're moving into an apartment, you have to start paying for everything. And that is a good time to start getting your children aware of this is what it's like with owning a home, but double. Because again, when you're in an apartment, something breaks, your air conditioner, you have a leaky plumbing, your dishwasher breaks, your stove breaks, you have a tree. I mean, these are things that happen to me. When we lived in California, our dishwasher was leaking because the tree in the back part, we had a townhouse that we lived in at that time. And the tree that was already cut, the root kept growing and got underneath the townhouse, and the root cracked a pipe that when we turn on the dishwasher, we'd see the leaking coming up from the floor. They had to kill the tree, kill the root. That was a problem the owners had to fix. We had to get a new stove and oven that had to be replaced, a new refrigerator. So these problems, even though it was an HOA, the homeowner had to, we were renting, the homeowner still had to replace these items right away. Because they didn't want to lose good renters. So again, I say that you have to think about that. The cost of ownership is going to cost you. Now, most people don't have an emergency fund for being a homeowner to repair an emergency repair fund because they don't have an emergency fund in their real life. These are the things that I've been talking about. Getting your credit to the highest point it can be. And you do that by not taking on any new spending, any new expenditures in the form of credit usage. You make sure that you lower your credit card to your debt to utilization rate, your your utilization rate, and your DTI, your debt to income ratio. How much debt do you have versus your income, which is something credit cards and banks look at. How much do you have out in loans? What's your student loan debt? What's your credit card debt? Tell us who you owe and what you owe. When I've applied for a mortgage and successfully have been approved for up to $750,000, the one thing they were looking at is your income, like your utilization rate. How much debt are you utilizing of your total debt? Are you using 10%, 20%? If you have $10,000 worth of debt and you're using $1,000, using 10% of your overall debt. Using $100, using 1%. But that means that you can only spend $100 and have that as an open line of debt, and the bank's going to say using 1%. Now, when you're more fiscally responsible, the better thing to do was to increase the overall credit limits that you have, your utilization or access of credit. You have $100,000. Well, then if you're using 10%, that's $10,000, right? So $1,000 is 1%. So again, the more access to credit that you have, when you're using credit, your debt ratio, your debt to income ratio, or debt to credit ratio, your debt utilization that's used, starts to go down when you get that up wider. But again, it's called utilization, not access. How much debt are you openly using? The more you use, the higher that number is going to creep up. And banks don't like seeing numbers. They typically, I've seen them, like numbers under 10%. But don't forget, they also look at what that debt limit is. Because ain't no way somebody's going to give you $750,000 worth of a mortgage if you have $100,000 worth of debt. And oh gosh, I don't know why it's just the weight. It's the weight of my phone. Got to make sure this is a little bit higher. If your debt utilization is high, 50%, and you only have $10,000 worth of debt, and they look at that, man, most months they're using 50%, they keep that up, you can't pay it off, which is why it's important to pay down your debt and stop accruing more debt. You want to access more credit, but you want to make sure that you don't keep on carrying more debt. And that's the problem. And if your income is not increasing, well, it doesn't matter if they lower the interest rates at all. Excuse me. It's still going to affect the price. If the price of everything is twice as expensive, even if interest rates are lower, you still are going to be priced out of the market, which means that if they do lower the interest rates in September, and next month, if they do lower it by 0.25%, 25% or 25 basis points, it doesn't mean that it's a good time for you to just go out and spend. I keep talking about this. And the reason why I speak on this is that don't let the rates fool you. Every time, if you look at 2007, 2008, whenever they went to lower the interest rate, a recession just hit. Because they're lowering the interest rates And what it doesn't do is talk about the increase in the job numbers, which we saw was 818,000 lost or revised that they said they had that they didn't have. They didn't have that. We know that number is going to go up to 1 million by the time we get to November, maybe even higher. So if they're not taking on more jobs, when this typically happens, you don't get higher raises, which is why I went to go ask for mine now. When this is happening, they're not giving you the level of raises like they used to. Companies are constricting, which means that if they do give raises, they're going to give it to their top people, their top producers, which is why when I was at my job, I asked for a merit raise. I didn't ask for a time of employment raise. I asked for a merit raise. The reason why you ask for a merit raise is because you're looking to hope to say my productivity should match the level of income increase or my wage increase, so that way I can continue to keep my employment here, or I can offer myself to your competitors. That's what you're basically saying without saying anything. But again, you have to have the value to be able to speak to in order to ask for that merit raise. It does not mean when they start lowering these rates, you go in straight to buy. No, I'm not going in straight to buy. I'm going to wait, because the fools rush in. They're going to go in to buy. And if your finances, does that, and here's the problem with that. Just because the rates are low, does inflation go lower? They said that inflation was at 2.9% this whole time. Have you gotten a raise above 2.9% in the last year? They did a study and showed that most people who are going to other jobs are not necessarily going to other jobs with an increase in pay. So again, if inflation, they said it was at 2.9%. We all know that's bullshit. But if it really is at 2.9%, has your income outpaced inflation? Have you increased your income 2.9% or more? If that answer is a no, or you don't know, then the answer is probably no. If it's yes, then prove it. Look at your income, write something down, and say that my raise of my income was more than 2.9%, which they said inflation was at. And by the time we figure out and recession was here, we're going to figure out it probably was 2 years ago, not this year or a year ago. So all in all, what you got to do, let's look at this from a global one. How can we bullet point this down? One, you need to make sure that you eliminate debt. Get your utilization rate of your debt down. Don't rush in to buy just because the rates are low. The rates were high. Everybody was talking about the rates going up a year ago. FOMO, you got to get in before the rates go up. And now they're back under, they already are under the highest they were. Because with this debt that the government has, they can't afford to keep interest rates up so high because they're paying interest on that debt too. Your taxpayer money is being paid back on interest, mainly interest, not even on the principal of the debt. And we're at 35 trillion. So don't let people fool you. Oh, rates is going up. Rates is going up. Yeah, okay, great. But that also means that if you got a good rate, you don't actually want to sell with your home. You don't want to sell right now because, again, you got a good rate. So, yeah, there's the damned you do, damned you don't. But don't damn yourself more by buying something and you can't afford it. Most people can't just sit down and say, I'm not buying because I can't afford it. Most people will never tell you they're not buying a home because they can't afford it. They will go and get in debt and tell you, you'll see them. They'll be looking aged out, stressed out. Just working and working and working to pay for it because that's the only thing they could do. It's their lifeblood. That's the only thing they can count on. And I'm saying to you, get your finances in order, get your inventory in order, get your house in order, get yourself some actual emergency funds, lower your utilization rate, and increase your income compared to your debt. Now, if you cannot do that, you need to stop and start working on how to do that before you move forward. I'm going to end it there today, folks. Again, and you got to start building a business, man. You got to get some extra ways to make money while you're not working, or you are working. You got to make sure your money's working for you. That's the last little bit. Folks, if you've been educated, enlightened, entertained, My name is Philip Davis. I am your host. Make sure you go to ancestrylands.com. Make sure you give this video a subscribe, a like, and a share. My book, Getting Dollars from Dirt. Look at that train. You see that train going up top? That's the Amtrak train there. SEPTA. Bringing everybody into work to Philly. Bringing the herd into work. Work for the city. Work for the companies that are going to pretty much lay you off at some point. My book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing, is on Amazon. Link is in the description section below. You can actually, this guy is not looking over while I'm trying to get over. He's looking behind me, trying to rush forward any which way. My book is on Amazon. It's in the description section below. Make sure, folks, you own property or you'll be owned as property. Phil Davis, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Have you ever wondered how some individuals amass wealth through vacant land investments? Here's your answer. We introduce the perfect solution, Getting Dollars from Dirt, a beginner's guide to vacant land investments, written by author Philip Davis Jr. and also owner of Ancestry Lands. Uncover tried-and-true strategies and expert advice to navigate vacant land investments, even as a novice. This book simplifies the process, offering practical steps toward financial independence. Learn to spot lucrative opportunities and boost your returns. Getting Dollars from Dirt equips you with the confidence and knowledge for wise investment decisions. Seize this incredible opportunity. Get your copy now and embark on your journey to wealth. Click the link below to order. Start building your fortune today.